Hello, my name is Nina. Welcome to my channel, Inside the Mind of a Human Predator. Today I'd like to make a brief video regarding sleep deprivation in the arsenal of a human predator with a narcissistic or psychopathic relational style. Before I get into it, I'd like to be a little pushy and ask you to like, share, and subscribe. My main motivation for this is the fact that some of these videos may be helpful for someone trapped in a toxic maladaptive situation, which will help them make the necessary choices. So when we think about sleep deprivation, we likely have a very exaggerated image in our mind. Someone who is chained up somewhere, like a movie, sleep deprived for days. In fact, sleep deprivation is almost universally recognized as a form of torture. In fact, certain intelligence agencies had used this form of interrogation, let's call it that way, in order to extract information from their subjects. And it is precisely that we have these extreme associations with the subject of sleep deprivation that we may not recognize when it has happened to us, because in our relationships in a family of origin, with an intimate partner, even in a roommate situation or with a friend, it takes on more subtle forms. Now, why is sleep deprivation a weapon in the arsenal of a narcissistic or psychopathic human predator? Well, there are two reasons for this. Reason number one is pretty simple. It's a form of control. When you're sleep deprived, you are more tired, exhausted in fact, and you're more malleable, you're easier to control. And when you look at this in a grand scheme of things, where you may be in a trauma-bonded scenario, you are exhausted to begin with. You are functioning in a situation of intermittent punishment and positive reward. You're walking on eggshells in the interim. You're constantly stressed out. You're frequently in the fight or flight mode. So your body chemistry is out of whack to begin with, which makes you tired. So sleep deprivation added on top of that makes you even more tired, even more malleable. So that's the more obvious reason. The less obvious reason is something that I've arrived at through observation of various individuals with these maladaptive relational styles. And it's the fact that they often go into narcissistic depletion in the evenings, at night, and sometimes it happens on a daily basis. So this insane mood swing fluctuation between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde can happen as often as every day, sometimes less so. So what do we mean when we say that? Well, when we refer to narcissistic depletion, we basically mean the fact that the maladaptive individual who is high on narcissistic traits had not received his narcissistic supply throughout the day in the desired amount. In layman's terms, attention. As we know, these individuals are highly reliant on getting attention in order to support their self-perception as well as prop up their image to the outside world. So validation is extremely important to them. And if they hadn't received enough of it throughout the day, they're going to be in an awful, rotten mood by evening and by night. And what better way to get it than by using you? The spouse, the friend, a family member, even a roommate. Now, let's also not forget that to these individuals, it doesn't matter whether attention is positive or negative, as long as it's attention, as long as there's some kind of overt emotional reaction to what they're trying to trigger. So now let's have a look at the ways that sleep deprivation may occur in your particular situation. One of the most seemingly legitimate ways of keeping you awake at night, if it happens on a recurrent basis, is to be very loud in the house when you had gone to sleep, because you have to be up early in the morning for work, to run errands, to have the full day, etc., etc. This individual might start grinding coffee at midnight, cooking, loudly banging pots and pans with a seemingly legitimate pretext. This individual might have to make that urgent phone call that cannot wait any longer at 2 o'clock in the morning and talk really loud. That individual may accidentally watch his or her movie at high volume late at night. Now, when it happens once or twice, you might think of it as simply being inconsiderate. When this is something that happens on a recurrent basis, and once again, as with all these other situations, you have to look at patterns. Then it is something that may be done deliberately. Now, the other way that these individuals may keep you awake at night, to the point of either not letting you go to sleep or to waking you up at night when it's a little more blatant, is by trying to engage and instigate some kind of an argument with you. Once again, it might be under legitimate pretext of, we must discuss our relationship right now at 2:30 in the morning. This cannot wait till the next morning. Or some family crisis, or some roommate crisis, or some friend crisis. It doesn't matter what the pretext is. For whatever reason, they are trying to argue that this cannot wait till the next morning. And soon you're going to realize that this conversation is going nowhere. They're introducing you to an entire laundry list of your faults. They may be mentioning events that may or may not have taken place a decade ago. They may mention incidents of things you've described to them that happened to you when you're 5, and they're completely trivial, and it makes absolutely no sense as to why they're being brought up in this context at 2:30 in the morning when all you're trying to do is go to sleep. Now, these situations may escalate in cases where there had been instances of domestic violence. This individual might act in an even more overt way where you can be barricaded inside the bedroom, and this person might simply stand and block the door. So you cannot remove yourself from that situation unless you go through them, and he or she is very, very angry. He or she, if you're sleeping, and he or she wants to wake you up, they'll turn on the lights, and it almost seems like you are at a police station in a movie being interrogated in the middle of the night. And that's kind of what they're trying to do. They're trying to destabilize you by using these techniques. And this will feel absolutely surreal the longer this so-called conversation goes on, because they're now engaging in word salad. Now, they might be using grammatically accurate sentences, but what they're saying has nothing to do with the original supposed purpose of the conversation. And the longer this goes on, the more tired you get, and the more exhausted you get from the sheer emotional drain of what's happening to you. You will go into one of the 4 F's. You will fawn. You will try to reason with them. You will try to delay this insane conversation until the next day. Nothing is working. And this can go on for hours. They're probably insulting you at this point and denigrating you and engaging in a whole slew of other techniques to destabilize you. And eventually, you will give them what they want. And what they want is a very explicit emotional reaction from you. So let's say you start crying and you actually have tears rolling down your face. This is exactly what they want. This is the point where they might actually let you go back to sleep because they've achieved their purpose of A, having you tired, and then you'll be under control the next day, and B, getting that narcissistic supply. Now, why was it important for them to see the emotional response? Could they not understand that what they're doing is already disturbing to you in the middle of the night? Well, let's not forget that these individuals who are high on narcissistic or psychopathic traits are very low on emotional empathy. So they might cognitively understand that what they're doing is disturbing to you, but they have to see it. They can't read emotions unless they're on the surface. They have to see these emotions on the surface for them to recognize that they have achieved their goal and they've gotten their attention, their narcissistic supply. Here it's quite negative, but it doesn't matter to them. And you are now allowed to sleep. until the next incident. So hopefully you can identify these situations in your life. It may be as benign as a friend who always has a crisis and always has to call you at night and always has to talk to you for hours and hours on end, even though you have to be up for work at 5 o'clock in the morning the next day. It may be as benign as that, but clearly all of these methods are being used to get attention from you and to keep you sleep deprived, to keep your attention on them, and thus to keep you under control. It's a way of asserting power over you. So hopefully this is something that you can identify if you look at patterns in your life, if this has happened to you, and you can take the necessary steps to eliminate these scenarios to the best of your ability. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.